Hi everyone, and welcome to my next video tutorial, which is going to be focused on implementing cloud storage with Amazon S3 for our Django application, so we'll be able to store and upload our static files and also our media files. So before we get started, I just want to go through a few prerequisites before we move on ahead. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go ahead and create an AWS account. So I will attach a link here in the description below where you can head on to AWS and then you can go ahead and create your account. Now, in terms of all of the steps, I do have an article which I have created here on the steps to create your AWS account, which will give you a general overview over the steps that you need to go ahead and take. I will also be sure to attach this link in the description below, which is going to give you some advice in terms of going ahead and setting everything up, creating your account, and all of those details. It also gives you some extra guidance and insight here. So that is something that you need to do. If you already have an AWS account, of course, it goes without saying, you don't need to worry about this. You can just log into your AWS account like normal and you're good to go. The second prerequisite for this video is you should already have a simple application up and running. Now, mine is extremely basic, but it does take into account static files and media files. So of course, if I were to show you my application briefly, as you can see, if I zoom in, I have my simple application here. I have my app CRM. I have my static folder, and of which I am connected to my CSS file, which is styles.css, and my JS file, which is app.js. So in styles.css, I've just set the color here to blue, so the H1 heading. And in app.js, I just have an alert that says hello world. So if I were to go ahead and ensure my server is running and just go ahead and refresh my application, we can see it says hello world. Now, I also have a media folder as well. So as you can see here, I have my media folder here set. I've also configured all of the bases for uploading files and all of that. So that is something out of scope for this video tutorial. So you already need to have an application, like I said, that handles static files and media files locally on your machine like normal. Okay, because I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and move and upload, or transfer, should I say, your media and static files to Amazon S3, which is of course cloud storage. Now, just an example to show you the media file upload process here. I'll make it very simple. So I'm just going to go to my Django admin page. So let me head on there. Okay, and I'm just going to log in with my credentials. Right, so we can now log in. So as you can see now, I have my user model, and under my CRM app, I have a profile model. So what I did was I created a simple user here. So I have a user here called Mark. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to attach a profile picture to Mark. So what I did was I created a profile model. So in my application, you can see if I go to my CRM app to models.py, as you can see, I have a profile model here, which is going to take in the first attribute as that of a profile pic with an image field, and this is going to be connected and binded to another user via a foreign key, and we are just connecting it to a specific user. So each user will be linked to a profile picture, and this has been registered in Django admin. So what I can do is I can go to my profile model, create an object, and I'm going to choose a file. So a profile picture, man1, and I'm going to bind it to Mark, my user, say save, go to that profile object, and I can see now the current location. So if I click on this image, it's currently stored at localhost in the media folder as man1.jpg. So if I were to head on to my project directory, you can of course see under the media folder that I have here, man1.jpg. Okay, so I'm not going to go into detail, like I said, about the media process and static files in detail with Django locally. I'm really going to show you how you can move it from a local environment to a production environment, and that's the focus of this video tutorial. So make sure that you have a good understanding of media files already and static files locally for your Django application first before continuing on with this video. Okay, so all I want to do now is I just want to go ahead and delete this profile object. So I'm just going to delete this. Okay, and remove this image here. There we go. All right, so I just wanted to clean that up. Okay, so we can log out and let's go to our application. All right, so those are the prerequisites, and what we're going to be doing next is we're going to go ahead and ensure that we're able to create an Amazon S3 bucket for storing all of our objects or files, you could say, and then we're going to connect it to our Django application. So that is going to be the next step. So next we're going to log in to the AWS Management Console, and we're going to work with AWS first before going ahead and connecting to our Django application. Hi everyone, and welcome to the AWS Management Console. So I trust by now that you went ahead and created your AWS account, and let's go ahead and get started. So whether you have an AWS account already or whether you just created one, we're all going to follow now from the same set of steps. So what you want to do is you want to look for a service known as S3. Okay, and I'm just going to add this to my bookmark, and you can go straight to the Amazon S3 service. And this is going to allow us to create an Amazon S3 bucket, which is like a directory, a special directory of sorts, which is going to allow us to house all of our files in our folders, you could say. So we want to create a bucket, and as you can see, every object in S3 is stored in a bucket, and then we'll be able to upload the files and folders that we need so we can create a bucket. Now do keep in mind here with the setup wizard that we need to first of all add in a bucket name. Now this bucket name is unique, so no single bucket in the whole AWS environment, you could say, can have the same bucket name, so it needs to be unique. So I'm just going to think of something unique here. So I'm going to say elevate bkt-1 let's say 96. Okay, so give your bucket a unique name, and you can also see some rules here for bucket naming because there is also a convention as well. The region I'm going to keep on the default, which for me is US East 2, Ohio. You can decide to change it if you would prefer. Okay, we can leave everything here on the default. We don't want to go into heavy detail. Next, we can see we have this block public access option. Now, in order to render out our static files, such as our CSS files and JavaScript files, there needs to be public access. We cannot hide that because that's of course not how it works. We need to be able to render those files, and in order to do so we need to turn off this setting. So you need to turn off block or public access, scroll down, and you just want to acknowledge the message here down below that we are turning off block or public access. Okay, you can leave everything on the default here. You don't need to do anything else but scroll down and say create bucket. Okay, there we go. So we've successfully created our bucket. So mine is elevate-bkt-96. Great, so scroll down and we can see we have one bucket here. We can see the region, we can see the objects can be public. Okay, we can see the creation date, we've got that all set. So now what we want to do is we want to set a JSON policy here in order to get our objects, in order to read them. So we can go to our bucket. Okay, and we can go to permissions, scroll down, okay, and we can see already block or public access is off, so make sure that you can see the same as me here. And now we want to create a bucket policy, which is going to allow our users to be able to get our objects. So we want to be able to get our static files, for example. So what you can do is you can say edit here. Okay. And you just want to keep a close eye on this bucket ARN right here. And in another tab, you just want to right click and open up the policy generator. So I'm going to right click here and say open link a new tab. Make sure you don't close this page here. And you want to keep in mind this bucket ARN. All right, so let's create a policy. Okay, so step one, select a policy type. We're going to choose S3 bucket policy. Under the statement, we're going to say allow, and the principal, we're going to say all. So to say all, what we can do is you can just add in a star. And we want to allow everyone to be able to do the following action, and that is to get an object. So in this case, we want our users to be able to read the object. So we can look for the API, which is get object. There it is. So here it is, get object. And here you need the ARN. So remember, you can just go ahead and click on this icon, which will copy what's right next to it. and you can head on to this input field, paste it in, add in a / and add in a star. Now the / and star means that this bucket policy that we're creating, which is JSON based, is going to be applied to all of the objects or files within our bucket. That's why we add in the / and star. Then you can say add statement, and this will allow us to go to step 3 to generate a policy with the following principles. So we want to set the principal to all, which means everyone. The effect is going to be allow. So this can be allow or deny. So everyone will be allowed to get an S3 object. So in other words, they'll be able to read it and view it under the following resource ARN, which pertains to the elevate-bkt-96 bucket /star, which means it's going to be applied to all the objects or files in the bucket right here. And we don't have any special conditions. Now what we need to do is generate this policy, which is our bucket policy. So we can say generate policy. As we can see, it is of course JSON based, and you can go ahead and copy the following, copy that, go to your previous tab, and here you can see you have a gray area for pasting in your policy. Make sure you paste that in. Make sure you don't have any lines or any spaces. I know some people struggle with this, so make sure that you copy it exactly and you don't move anything at all. Once you've done that, you can scroll down and you can say save changes. And there we go. We can see we successfully edited that bucket policy and we're good to go. So now we can go to buckets here. Okay. And what you want to do is you want to scroll down and just hit the refresh icon here where we see buckets. And you just want to confirm now that you can see the access now is under public. So now you can go back into your bucket and you can now see the tag that it is now publicly accessible. So everything is good to go. Now you can go ahead and close this policy generator. We don't need this anymore, and we can just leave that as is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click and duplicate this link here. This tab, should I rather say. Okay, and what I want to do now is I want to create an IAM user, which we'll use to generate our AWS access keys. So I'm going to now type IAM, and I'm going to just pin that to my navbar and go straight to the IAM service. Okay, so we'll just take a moment to load up. Okay, so here is the IAM dashboard. Now, whether you are using your root account or whether you're using an IAM user account, we are going to keep this very simple. I don't want to go into too much detail here. So we're all going to create a new IAM user that we'll use to go ahead and generate an access key for. So here on the left-hand side of the info panel, if you don't see it, you can just click on this icon here on the left. You can go to users. And what you want to do is you want to create a new user. So I'm going to say create user, and I just want to enter in all the details. So we can give add in our username, and I'm going to say, oh no, S3. Say, yeah, that's fine. -S3, that's also fine. I want to provide user access to the AWS Management Console so that I'll be able to sign in. I want to create an IAM user. And you can choose if you want to have a password that's auto-generated or a custom password, and you can go ahead and enter in that password that you desire. Okay, and I'm just going to uncheck this checkbox, say next. Okay, and usually you would add that user to a particular group, but I'm going to keep it rather simple and say attach policies directly. And I want to search for S3 full access. So here you can search for S3 full, yeah, here we go. It will autocomplete. So we want Amazon S3 full access. And this is going to allow us to make use of all of the various permissions and API actions that are part of Amazon S3. You want to click on that and say next. Okay, and you can see the information that pertains to this particular user. So the username is Arno-S3. We are creating a custom password. Doesn't require password reset. The permission summary, so this is going to be for Amazon S3 full access, and we can say create user. Okay, so that user was successfully created, and we can see some additional information in terms of the console sign-in URL, the username, the console password. You can download the .csv file if you want a list of all of the data here if you require. But other than that, let's return to the user list. Okay, and I'm just going to say continue. Now there is a lot more that goes to IAM than I'm showing you here, but that will take quite a lot of time, and I want to focus on the core being here Amazon S3, so I won't go into much detail as I usually do. So we can see the user. I have Arno-S3, and what you want to do is you want to click on that user that you just created, and you want to be able to create an access key. Now this access key is going to allow you to effectively go ahead and essentially make API requests between your Django application and your Amazon S3 bucket via the AWS CLI. So what you want to do is you want to create an access key for this user that you just created. And as you can see, the access key best practices and alternatives here, as you can see, we have a very different set of use cases. You want to choose local code. Okay, and you want to just click on the confirmation here and say next. Okay, you can now say create access key. And here you can see that you'll be able to retrieve your access keys here. Now, just a few best practices here. Just keep in mind that you don't store it in plain text in a code repository or in code here. So you need to always make sure that you add environment variables if you're deploying your application. This is not something we're going to cover, but just remember, if you deploy your application with your access keys in your Django app, that you need to make sure that you add environment variables, or else you're going to be in a very unpleasant position. And as you can see here, to disable and delete access keys when they're no longer needed, enable least privilege permissions, and to rotate your access keys regularly. So in other words, just to change them up now and then. So you can either download the .csv file, or what you can do is you can go ahead and copy the access key and the secret access key to like a notepad. So that's something that I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to look for my notepad. Okay, and I'm just going to copy my access key and my secret access key. So make sure that you don't share your access keys with anyone. Make sure that you keep it safe and secure. Okay, I'm just going to say AWS info. And there we go. Or what you can do is you can also download the .csv file. That is another way, so you don't need to add it to a notepad manually. And you can say done and continue. All right, so make sure you have an access key for the user that you just went ahead and created. And we're going to use this to make requests to our Amazon S3 bucket. So make sure you've gone ahead and you've done just that. All right, so that is it for our IAM part. So we can go ahead and close this up. And now we're just going to focus on our bucket. All right. So we've got all of the AWS part out of the way. The next thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to ensure that we are connected and that we've set up the AWS CLI. And this is going to allow us to run python-manage.pycollect static to automatically move all of our static files and our media files to AWS. So let's go ahead and set up the CLI. Right. So what you can do is you can head on to the following link to install or update the latest version of the AWS CLI. I will be sure to attach another link in the description below this video where you can go ahead and head on straight here. So this is going to allow us to make commands between our Django application and between AWS. So if you scroll down here, you'll be able to see the AWS CLI install and update instructions. So whether you're on Linux, Mac OS, or Windows, you can choose the appropriate one. And I'm going to choose Windows since that's what I am on. And we can see some requirements here, the default requirements. And what you want to do is you want to either install or update the AWS CLI. And it's really simple. All you need to do is you need to go ahead and click on this link here, which is the MSI launcher. So we can just click on that as follows. It's going to download it. We'll see right here. Let's just be patient for it to download. And then we'll go ahead and install the AWS CLI. And then we can go ahead with that and add in the rest of the steps. So let's just wait for that to be downloaded. There we go. And we can open up the MSI launcher. Okay, it's going to prepare to install. And it's just going to, first of all, compute all the space requirements. And what you may notice in the process is that your screen will go black or dim, but not to worry, that's just a security message to allow the AWS CLI to be installed on your system. So we just need to be a bit patient here while it computes all of the space requirements, before we go ahead and move on with the next set of steps and the process as a whole. So let's just wait for that to be completed. All right, so now we can see the following message and we can say next. Accept the terms. Okay, next. And you can say install, and this is going to, of course, prompt up that security message. So let's go ahead and just click on install. Okay, and we just need to be a bit patient here and just wait while the setup wizard installs the AWS command line interface version 2. So any moment now you should notice on your computer that the screen should dim for a moment, just to prompt you to allow that security message to come up. So all we need to do is just wait for that message, and then we can go ahead and proceed with the process. So here my screen is going to dim now and go black. You just want to say yes to that security message, and it's going to compute the space requirements and install the CLI. So that should just take another moment or two. All right, so as we can see, the AWS CLI was set up and we are good to go. So you can just say finish. And to confirm this, you can open up your terminal if you're on Mac OS. If you are on Windows, you can just open up your CMD. Okay, just a fresh version here. Just want to resize this for you. Just excuse me. There we go. Clear that up. Okay, so if you are on Mac OS, it will be clear. If you're on Windows, you can just say CLS. And in Mac OS, you'll have your terminal. Windows, you'll have your command prompt. Okay, so you can just type in AWS -- version. Okay, and there you can see if the CLI has been installed or not on your system. So make sure you've gone ahead and set that up accordingly. That's very important. Right, so now what we want to do is we need to configure our AWS credentials so that if we automatically run python manage.py collect static, we'll automatically be able to upload all of our static files to AWS immediately. So what you can do is say AWS configure, and you want to enter in your AWS access key that you want to utilize. So the access key first. Press enter, and then the secret access key. And press enter. Then you want to set your default region name, so it's going to be US-East-2. And the default output format, so we can keep that at JSON or whatever. It doesn't really matter as long as you enter in your access key and secret access key and press enter. Now, do keep in mind that the default region name here is US East 2, so that is where our bucket has been created, and this is going to be observed when you created your bucket the first time. So make sure you've configured your credentials accordingly, very important, or else you won't be able to go ahead and upload your static files automatically to Amazon S3. Okay, so we can close that up. So make sure you've set that up accordingly. The next thing that we need to do is we can head on to our application and we can open up our normal terminal. So as you can see, I'm within my virtual environment for my project here. So what I want us to do is to install two packages. So we can install Django storages first, which is going to provide us with support for our storage backend to manage our media files and static files, especially when we link them with our Amazon S3 service. So we can go ahead and copy this package and make sure that you install it within your project's virtual environment. Perfect. Once you have installed that, you want to go to your application, head on to your settings.py file, and you just want to scroll down. So let me scroll down, and here by installed apps, you want to add in storages. So make sure you add in storages for the Django storages app that you just went ahead and created. Very important. As you can see, I already have one, which is CRM. Then this is just my app that I have here. So that just pertains to my app, and storages is what you need here to ensure that you are utilizing this package accordingly. Next, you want to use Boto S3. So this is the AWS SDK for Python. So we are going to make a Python-based command that's going to bridge the connection between our Django application and our Amazon S3 bucket. And to do so, we also need Boto S3. So we can go ahead and copy that. And within your virtual environment, you want to say pip install Boto 3. There we go. So make sure that you've installed those packages. So we've installed Boto 3 and Django storages. Perfect. So I just want to close what we don't need for the moment, and we can go back to our application and let's continue. So in your settings.py file, I want you to head on straight there and let's scroll down. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you want to add in your AWS Access Key ID and your AWS Secret Access Key. So what I'm going to do is remove these comments. Right, let me remove this here so we know what's going on. Okay, and I want to mention something, that you need to add in these variables to your settings.py file and make sure it's exact. If you even have the spelling wrong or a misplaced underscore or something extra, you're going to usually have a 403 error or an error of the sort. So make sure that you add in these variables that I'm about to show you exactly as is to your settings.py file. So make sure you've added AWS underscore access underscore key underscore ID to your settings.py file and AWS secret access key to your settings.py file. And within quotes here, you can add in those single quotes. You want to add in your access key in between here, and your secret access key in between there. So make sure you've added in those keys and you've configured these variables accordingly. Next, we need to set up basic storage configuration for Amazon S3. So this doesn't matter with which Django version you're using. So this is the default that you need to use. So I'll comment this out here. And the first thing you want to do is declare a variable known as AWS storage bucket name, exactly as is. And here you want to enter your S3 bucket name. So we can check what our bucket is called, and mine is called elevate bucket 96. And I'm going to paste it in like so. And you also want to set a variable to say AWS S3 file override false. This ensures when you upload your media files that even if someone were to upload a file with the same name, that AWS will know the difference and automatically create a separate file with a different name to ensure that there isn't any file overrides within your S3 bucket. So it's very important that you set this to false. Right. Now, the next thing that you want to do is you want to set a variable known as AWS underscore S3 underscore custom domain. So if I zoom out, you can fully see the value here. So we're just adding in some string formatting to append a custom URL, you could say, or domain, which is going to hold the storage bucket name that you have. And it's going to attach with string formatting .s3.amazonaws.com onto the bucket name with a unique custom domain URL of sorts. So this ensures that when we want to click on our static files that are hosted in Amazon S3, we can see it via a very clean URL. This is something that I will get back to later on in some more practice so that you can understand it. At the moment, I know it sounds a bit confusing, but I will elaborate further. So make sure that you have these variables set. So your storage bucket name with the associated value of your bucket, AWS S3 custom domain. This needs to be exactly as I have it here. And you want to set AWS S3 file override to false, as I said, to ensure that your file names do not get overridden. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll just move this up. So make sure you have your AWS access key and secret access key defined, and then make sure that you have the basic storage configuration for Amazon S3 set here. It's very important that you have that. So I'll just talk about something else for the moment while you go ahead and add that in on your device. So something else that we're going to do next is we're going to set the configuration in terms of the custom file storage, whether you're on Django 4.2 and up, or if you are on Django 3, for example, or 3.2 for etc., or Django 4.0. I'm going to show you the old way in which you can set up your static files and handle file handling. Okay, so what we can do now is move on to that step. So I'm going to show you two ways. So first of all, we have for Django versions less than 4.2, and then we have for Django versions greater than 4.2 the logic. I'm going to show you the first version here. So I'm assuming you're on Django 4.1 here, or Django 4, or Django 3. We're going to do this one first. So the process is the same. I just want to show you the details. So I'm going to comment out the code that I have here. And you want to add in the following, which is default file storage and static file storage. So we want to set the default file storage and static file storage to Amazon S3 Boto 3, and this is going to ensure that we'll be able to house all of our files within an Amazon S3 bucket. So default file storage is generally for our media files, and static file storage is of course for our CSS and JavaScript files, and of course the values are identical because we are of course making use of Boto 3. Right, so once you have added in these values, assuming you're on a lesser version of Django 4.2, you can go to your command prompt, clear your terminal, and you can run python manage.py collect static. Okay, and you can say yes. Okay, let's just give it a moment. So this is going to take a while, it might take a few minutes. So what's going to happen is Django is also going to collect all of the default static files that come with your admin page as well. This is usually why it takes some time, because behind the scenes we have static files for our admin page, such as CSS files, JavaScript files, and these are files that we don't see. This is in between, behind the scenes, like I said, of Django. So this is why it's going to take a while. It's also going to collect all the static files that we have created, such as my custom CSS file, which I mentioned in the beginning, and my custom JavaScript file, which I mentioned in the beginning. And these are all going to be collated and transferred to our Amazon S3 bucket. And I'll show you exactly how that process unfolds as soon as all of the static files have been collected, and then they'll be transferred to our Amazon S3 bucket here. We'll see that the object list here will list, and as you can see, it's already been, the upload process has already started, as we can see, but it hasn't been completed yet. So we just need to be patient for this to be completed, and then I'll go into further detail and show you the rest of the steps. Right, so welcome back. So as we can see, 127 static files were copied, and we can go to our bucket, and I'm just going to refresh. And as we can see, we've got all of our objects uploaded. So we have our admin folder, CSS, JavaScript. So if I go to CSS here, I can see my custom CSS file has been uploaded. And if I can go to JS, I can also see my custom JavaScript file has also been uploaded as well. Now we just want to see if this is being served in our application, and I'm also going to explain what I mentioned earlier here about our custom domain URL here. So if I were to go to my application now, I just want to run it. Let's run that. There we go, and let's refresh. Okay, we can see that JavaScript is running. I want to right click and say view page source, and we can see that it's being served now from, of course, AWS. We can see that URL elevate bucket 96 with this custom URL pointing to the folder CSS styles.css, and we can see it's being rendered from AWS as static files. And we can see this custom domains at work. It shows the bucket name, and with string formatting, it appends onto this .s3.amazonaws.com right on top of it, as we can see, just to make the URL a lot cleaner. Okay, so that's the static files. Now the media files. So if we were to go to our admin page now, and let's log in with our admin credentials. Okay, let's log in. We can go to profiles, and let's just create a new object for a test, and I'm going to choose a file and going to assign it to my user, save. Now it's going to take a moment here because it's going to upload it to our Amazon S3 bucket. You can see it was updated. Go to that object, and you want to click here on that particular image. And we can see it's being served from our bucket here. So elevate bucket with that URL, and it's man1.jpg. We can go to our bucket, refresh here the object list, and we can now see that image has been uploaded. So we can see we've also configured our static files and our media files, and everything is into place. Great. So we've got all of that sorted. So what I want to do now is I want to show you how you can do it with the later versions of Django, because the current logic that we have here, believe it or not, is currently deprecated. So it's still going to work for Django 4.2, it's still going to work, but eventually it's going to be phased out, and I want to show you the newer versions for Django 4.2 onwards, so you don't run into an issue. But I know some of you are using older versions of Django and can't update just of yet because of your workload or pressure or anything of the sort. So that is for Django 4.2 downwards. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clear everything up, and then I'm going to show you Django 4.2, the exact same process. Okay, so I just want to be thorough here. So I'm going to remove this object, delete this profile object. There we go. And I'll remove all of these objects here that I have in my bucket. Okay, I want to delete them. So go ahead and delete them here if you plan on using the newer version for S3. Close. Okay, just make sure you have no objects here and it's clean, and you have no objects here under your profile object. So, and as you can see, all that styling is gone now. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in the necessary functionality for applications for Django 4.2 up. So I'm going to comment out this code now. Okay, so that is done. So let's move on to Django 4.2 and up. So let's go ahead and look at that. So make sure you've commented out the following code here. So I'm going to zoom out here since this is quite a lot. And I'm going to comment this out. And let's evaluate this here. Okay, let me try to fit it all in one. Okay, so this is the following logic that you need to set for Django 4.2 applications. So it's rather simple. So for media or file image management, for example, you want to set the backend to storages.backends.s3boto3 static storage. And for your CSS and JavaScript file management for those static files, you also want to set the backend to storages.backends.s3boto3.s3 static storage. And that's for your static files. So the key difference that lies in here is your default storage, which is going to pertain mainly with your actual files, your media files, your images, etc. That's going to pertain to that. Even though the backend is the same, but there's a distinction between the default file storage backend and static files. Static files more geared towards JavaScript files and CSS files. Well, the default here is explicitly going to be helpful for our media files and images. So make sure you've created this storage variable and that you've associated it here accordingly in a curly brace, and you've associated default and static files. Very important that you set this up. So this is the logic that you need to add in. So make sure you add it into your settings.py file and that you have commented out or removed the old S3 code for handling your static and media files, and this is the newer version that you should add in for your media files, images, and your CSS and JavaScript files. So make sure you've gone ahead and that you've added this in accordingly. So I'll just talk a little bit more while you can pause the video and add in this code accordingly to your application. Okay, so this will allow us to handle our media files, our CSS and JavaScript files with the latest version of Django. So once you've added this code in, what we can do is we can go to our terminal. We're going to run python manage.py collect static, and we're going to follow the exact same process that we just did. So what we can do is stop our server and run python manage.py collect static. And you want to say yes, same process. And as you can see here, there's going to be a delay because same thing's going to happen before. Django is going to collect all the static files that we have. And of course, what it's going to do is also collect the admin files. And this is going to take a moment. So we just need to be patient. And then we can continue with the rest of the process. Right, so welcome back. So as you can see, all of those static files have been copied and we're good to go. So now if we go to our bucket, refresh, we can see all of those objects. Here we are, great. And we can run our server now. So you want to say python manage.py run server. There we go. And you want to refresh your page and you should be able to see our JavaScript file and our CSS file rendering, right click and view page source. You can see that they are again being rendered correctly. And of course, like before, we can go to our admin page, log in with your super user credentials, and you can log in. Okay, and what you want to do now is you can just create a clean profile object. So we can add a profile, choose a file. Okay, save. There we go. You can go to that object itself. Click on that particular image. We can see where it is hosted from. So we can see from our bucket man1.jpg, and refresh your object list and you should be able to see it, and there it is. All right, so we can also see those media files are being rendered correctly. All right, guys, so that is it. That's how you can effectively go ahead and implement cloud storage via Amazon S3 to handle all of your production-based static files and media files, and just to host it accordingly. So that is how you would be able to go ahead and do just that. Now, in terms of the code here, I will be sure to add this to GitHub, so you can go ahead and just get the structure if it's just in terms of the code here for Django 4.2 or for under Django 4.2 and all of the necessary logic. I will be sure to add that because I know some of you just want a reference tool, and I'll do that for you. I'll also add in all of the links that I've used in this video tutorial as well, so that is there for you. Just a word of advice, which I think I'm going to do now and show you. You just want to make sure that you delete your access key, okay, as well. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so if you want to delete your user and access key, what you can do is go to your user list. And here I have my user Arno S3, and you want to just delete your access key. So you can go to security credentials, access keys, you can go to actions, say deactivate it. Then you can click on actions again, say deactivate, and you want to add in that key that you have, delete it, and there we go, it's been deleted. So that's how you can delete your access key. In terms of deleting your bucket, you can go to Amazon S3 itself. And you just need to first of all empty your bucket. So you can click on your bucket here and you can go to empty. Then you need to permanently delete all the objects. So I just like to copy the phrase permanently delete and empty that. Go, and you can say exit. And then only then would you be able to delete your bucket. So you can click on your bucket, say delete, and enter in that bucket and delete it. All right, that bucket has been deleted. Now, if you want to delete your IAM user, so the IAM user doesn't cost you money, but for clarity, I'll just show you how to do it. It's really simple. You can go to your user list, click on that, click on that particular user you want to delete. Say delete, and just enter in the name of the user that you want to delete and say delete user. And there we go. That user has been deleted. All right, guys, so that's it for this video tutorial. I hope it was helpful to you. I will be sure to add the necessary links, etc., and resources in the description below. And I'll also add in the code as well for you so you have a baseline. All right, guys, so that's it. And as always, thank you for the support, and I'll see you next time.